All right, now we're moving on to subpart 3, which is called people-centered design methodology. In this, we will try and understand that we've talked until now about bringing people into this process, bringing people in and then researching with them, conceptualizing with them, testing with them. But how do we actually do this? Is there a stringent approach? Is there a step-by-step process? How do we make this actually happen? So what you will see is the 4 parts of the course that you're working with mapped to this methodology. So the first part is called problem discovery. What problem discovery means is that we take a problem that we're given or we want to solve, and then taking that we try and find, do we just run into solutions, or are there some other things associated with this problem? Do we need to think about this a little more? Maybe we need to take a step back. Maybe we need to take a step sideways. Maybe we need to look at this problem from various angles and then discover what is the true and the correct problem to solve. The second part is called research and analysis, where we would be researching users as part of our due diligence, and we would be analyzing all our findings from our research with users, from our study with users, from going in the field, etc. And we would come back and analyze all those findings. Now, not only our own research with users, it also involves research of research material, content that exists. There's a lot of information that is available about people's behavior, about people's cognitive abilities, and all of those things that exist. So bringing those as well into the fold, but essentially making sure that we spend our time researching users, understanding what their needs are, and then analyzing that to the point where we say, okay, this is what we need to design. This is what our overall core strategy is. And then we move on to the third, which is concepting and building, right? Concepting and building is where we take these insights, this core idea of what is it that we need to design, and then we start ideating. We start looking in various directions, various places, various avenues for opportunities that we can think about and ideas that we can think about out of the box, and try and come up with lots of different ideas. And then we take all of those and then we start converging and bringing it all into one concept, and then we take it further and start building those concepts. So that's the third. And then we have usability testing, refining, and pitching. So taking that first concept that we would have made, we start to bring users in and try and test it. Not just show them and not give a demo and just tell them, do you like it or do you not? But it's about bringing them and having them actually use some version of the product that we would have created. So early on, we are able to tell whether it makes sense or no. And then based on that, we refine and we pitch. Now, does this all follow in this neat sequence that I have shown you? It does not. Design is not a neatly planned sequential process. Design is a process that can be full of different pathways. So based on your concepts, you might decide to go back and research some more. You might decide to change your problem, that you realize after your research with users that the direction that you were taking is completely not the right direction. There's a very different direction. So you start with your problem definition all over again. Or you might do usability testing and realize that, you know, this, what's happening over here, there are certain gaps in the information. So we need to go back and do some more research and analysis. So while it looks like it may be a chaotic process, it is not chaotic, but it is flexible. It allows us to do what is the right thing to do from the people's perspective. So if we feel we need to go back and forth, this is what the methodology allows us to do. This is what the methodology requires that we do. Not go in this neat sequence, but be able to move around and be flexible, working with these different building blocks and be able to arrive at something that is truly people-centric. This is a diagram that I'm presenting to you that has gotten now to be very well known, often quoted, put together by IDEO, which says that innovation happens at the intersection of these three elements which are shown in a Venn diagram. So the business aspect, which is viability, the people aspect, which is desirability, and the technology aspect, which is feasibility. So when these three come together, then at the intersection of that is where very strong innovation happens. And with the examples that I presented to you earlier, we understood that how important it is that a good design impact the business. If it doesn't impact the business, if it doesn't have a positive draw out of that from the business perspective, it does not make sense, right? So from the examples, we saw how it impacts the business. If we create if we arrive at a poorly created design, that also impacts the business. If we create something that is you know, excellent, it impacts the business. And we look at a couple more examples. And design thinking and the process must begin over here. That is the other point that we take back from this. So they talk about different aspects of innovation as well: emotional innovation happening at the intersection of business and people, process innovation, and then functional innovation. But we would like to focus on this whole experience innovation part, and design thinking being the starting point of that, where starting with the people. We start with the people, and we also pay attention to the business and the technological aspects, and when all that is in balance, that's when we arrive at a strong experience innovation. Now let's look at some examples that confirm what I have been speaking to you about, the methodology. This is a camera from Kodak from many years ago. This was in the 1800s, okay? In those days, photography was something that only a few experts, select people, could do. And it was very complex. The cameras were very complex. It was not the job of your average person. It's very hard for us to even imagine a day like that, because today every one of us is holding a camera in our hands, right? So those were the days when this was how the camera looked. It was a huge contraption. It was not at all easy to operate. Now, Kodak at one point, through all their very strong user-centric approaches and of course very strong business acumen, they came up with this camera, which was a huge revolution and a big shift. What did this camera do? This camera became a handheld camera. Not just that, it became something smaller, much simpler, much easier, with the notion that you or me or anybody could start doing photography. And what they also did was the roll of film was invented. So in the process, what they understood, there were two things over here. One is that they understood the deeper human need to do photography, be able to hold a camera in your hand. Why? Because what does photography do? Photography captures memories. It's an emotional thing. So for us, to be able to capture memories, which is what we do all the time today, is a very strong human need, is a very strong people need, which they understood, and therefore this transition happened from this camera to this one. Second thing is, this roll of film was invented, and this roll went in the camera. Now this is where the strong business model comes in. It was a roll of 24 shots, right? And when you're done with those 24 shots, you send the film back to Kodak to process. And there came the very strong business model. So it was a win-win situation for the customer, the end user, as well as the company. And those are the designs that typically are the most successful ones, those which have a strong balance between the business and the user. And this was a classic example of that. And remember, this happened in the year 1888. Now this is the advertising slogan that went with it, and this was I believe George Eastman from Kodak company came up with this, and this became very, very famous and quoted a lot, where he says, "You press the button, we do the rest." Now what do you think this meant? What do you think they captured over here? They captured ease of use. All you have to do, I understand, Kodak, understand that you want to capture your memories. I also understand that the present camera is something that is very frightening. So we're taking care of everything. You just press the button. You enjoy the whole experience of photography. You press the button and we do the rest. What is the we do the rest? We do the rest is we process your film. We, put it all together and we ship it back to you. And of course, in the process, it was a very strong business proposition. So you press the button, we do the rest is a very strong statement in people centricity, in understanding people needs and being able to not just make it into a product, but translate it into a business proposition. So some of the other things that they did through their marketing material and advertising material that you can see, and you can see that it looks like something from 1800s, right? But look at the things they've put on it. Anybody can use it. Anybody can use it is a very powerful statement that is taking the camera from the hands of extremely sophisticated professionals, experts only who know how to do it, to the hands of you and me. Okay, anybody can use it. So this was a very strong exercise that they went through, and a very wonderful outcome that happened for Kodak as a company. And as I told you, they understood the fundamental human need of the fact that photographs capture memories. And that is what people would like to do, right? What else did they do? They understood and projected it as a picturesque diary. It is a picturesque diary that captures all your beautiful memories. It's a beautiful instrument. If you compare with the earlier one, which was a huge contraption, it's a very handy, portable little machine and product. And they also called it a division of labor. Division of labor was what? That you click the button, we do the rest. You take your photographs, we process it for you. So this is a very beautiful example of them, Kodak, synthesizing and understanding what the user wanted, and it translated into an extremely successful product for many, many, many years. Here's another example of something in more recent times that we are all familiar with, and we know what a huge success this product was, the iPod. Okay? Now the iPod was not the first and only MP3 player in the market. When the iPod came out, there were successful MP3 players already in the market. It was yet another one. So what made it so successful? Again, like the approach of the business and the technology and the people perspective and bringing people into the center of it, what Apple did was they were able to separate the product and how music is purchased and how music is managed. So they changed forever how people listen to music. The notion until then was you could only get a music as a collection. You could have collections of music that you buy as is. The notion of getting a song by song kind of elements that you add to your collection wasn't heard of until then. Secondly, the notion that you put limited songs on the device, which is on the iPod, and a large part of your collection goes on something else, which is in your iTunes. So it's situated elsewhere. Your music library is situated elsewhere. So this was again a very new concept, and this is what made it so successful. They were able to look at it as a product, as the way music is purchased and the way music is managed. So the three were separated, and it was a really out-of-box concept. The notion that your music library, so the music that I own doesn't sit in my music player. So it was a very strange concept perhaps initially, but based on what existed until then, and then they forged ahead with it, and then it became a huge success, as we know. So they looked at it as the design of the product, the design of the overall experience over here, and then the design of the business came around that. And of course, we know what a successful business it became. So that's another example of how being people-centric led to business success ultimately, right? Listening to the user, watching the user, understanding user needs, incorporating those into the product, and bringing them all together led to business success. So this notion of music player outside the library, perhaps people before that had said impossible, and perhaps Apple said why not? Why can't we do it, right? So this why not is a very design thinker, a people-centered designer approach, having that can-do attitude. Why not? Another example in much more recent times from Procter & Gamble, and this was called the Swiffer mop, which became very successful again. So what Procter & Gamble did is they started to look at how people are cleaning their floors. And what they found is that people are spending as much time cleaning the floor as they're spending to clean the mop. The instrument that they're using to clean the floor, it's taking as much time to clean that. So they started asking the question, right? That people are spending as much time cleaning the mop as they spend time cleaning the floor. There's got to be a better way to clean a floor. And so what did they do? They went around and did extensive ethnographic research. We will discuss that in part 2. They went around and they interviewed people. They interviewed people who clean floors in their homes. They interviewed maids and cleaning agencies who do this for a living, who professionally clean floors. And through that whole research emerged the inspiration and thereafter the design of the product. How to provide a better cleaning tool than a mop with less time spent cleaning was the new problem that they came up with. And what was their new solution? A wet towel on a stick that could be thrown away once it was soiled. And that they called the Swiffer, what you see over here. And it became a huge success. Not just the people who cleaned loved the product, but it was a huge business success and made lots of money for the company. Okay? Let's look at another example closer to home. In rural settings, we have pumps that are situated near the farm in order to water the farm. And oftentimes it's far away from the farmer's house, right? This pump needs to be started at different times in the day depending on when they need to water the farm. water the fields. And you know, the someone, and typically it's the woman of the house, oftentimes that needs to go and do this work, walk across all the way to the where the farm is from their home, turn on the pump, and then come back, right? And oftentimes this has to be done after dark, in the evening. You know, turning on or off the pump needs to be done in the evening, which can be not such a happy situation. So this product called Nano Ganesh was developed by this person called Santosh Oswal. What he did is he understood this particular need, and he designed something that would operate the pump using the mobile phone remotely. It would be able to turn on the pump and off the pump remotely, and revolutionized how you know, people's lives became thereafter, where these women didn't have to go at the end of day, in the evening, at dark, after dark, to go and turn on or off the pump. They were able to do it from their home, and this led to a very successful startup. So oftentimes, and most times, successful products, you will find, have a very strong connect with the people for whom they are being designed. So looking again at the people-centered design methodology, you know, the problem discovery, research and analysis, concepting and building, and usability testing, refining and pitching. These are the 4 broad things that we do, the broad 4 parts in which we are going to learn this course. However, remember to be flexible. Remember to be comfortable with ambiguity. Remember, if you feel that there's something that's kind of not quite making sense from the user's perspective, and you need to go back and do a little research, or you need to go and ideate a few more things, don't feel like this is a methodology that's cast in stone. It is not. It is the reverse. It's meant to be very flexible. It's meant to be something that you're able to adapt to the way you need it to be. Now, here's an example I will show you of a people-centered design process, and unfortunately I'm not able to show you the picture of the product, but I will describe it to you textually. All right? So this is a product that was a small mailing machine, and it's an office product, and it was designed for small business owners. Okay? The project started with a business reason. It started because this particular machine was being taken, and every time a customer bought it, a service person from the company was having to go over, either drive there, fly to wherever the customer is, go and spend half a day, whatever it is, to set up the machine for them. This was costing the company too much money, right? It was a business problem. So how can we make this machine so that it can be a self-install? Is there a way that we can pack this machine into a box and ship it to you, customer, who is a small business owner, and you be able to set it up yourself? It saves the company huge amounts of money if the service person doesn't have to go along with that product and set it up for you, right? So this is what it says. The current machine needed a person to go and set it up for the customer. It cost too much. It just was too expensive. So is there something that we can do, right? So what was the goal? What was the design goal? Design an easy to set up and use machine and its interaction with the computer center. So this needed not just for the user to be able to set up the machine in their home office or in their office, but it also needed for them to call a computer center remotely and then be able to put money into the machine. Okay, so this is something that a lot of people were may not be comfortable with, but we needed to make it a self-install. That is the design goal, right? So we can ship it in a box and send it to the customer, and we can save all this money. How do we design something to be so easy to use? So one of the first things we started with was who is our user? It is a small business owner. So what? What does that mean? Who is that person? What might their profile be like? So a small business owner probably has no time. They are a startup probably, so they're running, they're wearing multiple hats and doing, they're also their own accountant, their own CEO, their own cleaning person, everything. They are probably stressed, right? And perhaps they may have limited education. They may not have a lot of sophistication. So this is the kind of profile of the person we created, saying this is the person for whom we need to be able to design, and this is the person who needs to be able to get this machine, arrive at their doorstep, by shipped to their home, and then they need to be taking it out and be able to set it up themselves. They need to be able to call the computer center, and then they need to be able to put money remotely. Okay, so it was a tall order trying to do all of those things. Now, based on all this, what is the design goal that we set up? Based on our understanding of our users, that this person has no time, they're wearing multiple hats, they're stressed, they may have limited education maybe, and all of those things, we said 15 minutes setup. Okay, we said this has to be this kind of person has to be able to set this up in 15 minutes, and also with no calls to the helpline. What's the point, right? If the machine is going to the doorstep, and then they instead of the person going, the customer service person going to set it up, if we're getting lots and lots of calls to the helpline, it's the same thing. It's cost to company. So we went through iterations. And this is what I want to present to you, how the iterative process led to satisfying the business goal, right? In the first iteration, it took this kind of person 45 minutes to set up this machine. It took a long time. We looked at that and we said, okay, what are all not working? Let's go back and change things. We made revisions, changed things, and all. In the second revision, we brought it down to 25 minutes. They were able to set it up in 25 minutes. And then finally, we were able to successfully ship a product that met its benchmarked setup time. And you will hear this word benchmark later again. The benchmark was 15 minutes with no calls to the helpline. So before the product was shipped, we had a great sense of comfort that this is working. It was not shipping it out and saying, oh my God, I wonder if they're going to take 45 minutes to set it up. I wonder if they're going to keep calling the helpline. I wonder if they're going to be able to set it up or not. So this is an example of a people-centered design in action, in process. And it resulted in a very successful product. So the goal, while the goal was cost reduction, the solution was a people-centered design. A few years later, this research came out, which is very interesting, and that's why I would like to share it with you. It says, and this is not just about the benchmark that we had set, it says the average consumer only spends 20 minutes trying to get, say, a DVD player or something like that working. They return the item as faulty, but remember, the item is not faulty. They returned it because they were not able to set it up. But what is important for us to understand, how long of a tolerance do people have? So this study by this Dutch scientist says that number is about 20 minutes. And as you saw in our design, we pegged it at 15 minutes. But 15, 20 minutes, that is how long people have the tolerance, have the desire to spend time before they just shut it up and say, boom, I'm not interested. And today, with online purchasing and all that, if you have people going through a process that doesn't seem that seems too tedious, it's very easy to just click on that close button, right, and move to a competitor. So again, people-centered design has far-reaching implications. There was this study done by Accenture. And what did this study say? They found that 68% of gadgets were returned by buyers that do work properly. They work properly. There's nothing wrong with them. They just don't meet the customer's expectations, or they were set up incorrectly. So if they don't meet customers' expectations and they pack it up and ship it back to you, it costs the company a lot of money that is completely avoidable. Why were they not able to set it up, right? And if they set it up incorrectly, what does that do? It results in a call to the service center, and that again costs the company money, which means a service person would have to service that call, get in their vehicle, come to your doorstep, sit and figure out what the problem is, and then sort it out for you. Costs money, right? So I hope through all these you have understood not just the people-centered design methodology and the general approach that we take to solving people-centric problems or solving problems in a people-centric way, but that we also be able to be flexible about it, and flexible from what perspective? That at all times we keep the people at the center. And when that happens, there are strong business implications, positive business implications, and we are able to create successful products. And again, I would like to remind you that when I say products, I mean product or a service or a product service or an entire product service ecosystem. Okay?